Let's open with a word of prayer.
Lass uns mit Gebet anfangen. Unser
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this new morning.
himmlischer Vater, ich danke dir für diesen neuen Morgen.
And I thank you that we can learn out of your precious word.
Ich will dir danken, dass wir aus deinem kostbaren Wort lernen können.
Your word will never pass by.
Und dein Wort wird nie vergehen.
Even if heaven and earth are passing by.
Selbst wenn Himmel und Erde vergehen.
And I pray that you will teach us these rules which are coming out of your word on this day.
Und ich bitte dich, dass du uns deine Regeln aus deinem Wort lehrst an diesem Tag.
And I pray that you will also bless our speaker.
Und bitte segne auch den Sprecher.
And I pray that you will also bless the translation.
Bitte segne auch die Übersetzung.
And I pray that you will send your Holy Spirit to teach us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Und bitte sende deinen Heiligen Geist, um uns zu lehren. In Jesu Namen. Amen.
Okay, so, and as Margaret prayed, right, we need the Holy Spirit to teach us, right?
Und wie Schwester Margaret gebetet hat, wir brauchen den Heiligen Geist, der uns lehrt.
Because man's thoughts are not God's thoughts, according to Isaiah 55, right?
Denn die Gedanken des Menschen sind nicht Gottes Gedanken, gemäß Jesaja 55.
And the last few days, when we've been looking at these different illustrations in Matthew, Daniel, and Revelation,
Und in den letzten Tagen, wo wir uns die verschiedenen Darstellungen angeschaut haben, Matthäus, Daniel und Offenbarung,
we can begin to understand why Sister White says that we are to study the seventh plague.
und da fangen wir an zu verstehen, warum Schwester White auch sagt, dass wir die 7. Plage studieren müssen.
Because as we're reading, and as the Lord has been bringing us to understand these things, you can see that every story in the Bible is pointing to this point in time, this seventh plague.
Denn als wir ja angefangen haben, das zu studieren und zu lesen, konnten wir eben sehen, dass wirklich jede Geschichte, sie weist auf diese 7. Plage hin.
Okay, so we need God's wisdom and not our own thoughts, right?
Und wir brauchen ja Gottes Weisheit und nicht unsere eigenen Gedanken.
Because I still hear a lot of human speculation on these verses, and we're not really trusting in the way that God has laid out the Bible.
Und ich höre ja noch immer recht viele menschliche Spekulationen über das Wort und wir vertrauen nicht wirklich Gott, wie er das eben ausgelegt hat in seinem Wort.
Okay, so let's begin. Matthew 24 and verse 15.
Und wir beginnen, indem wir zu Matthäus 24 und Vers 15 gehen.
Okay, so we've been seeing how that. In fact, let's read the verse first, and then we're going to. It says, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand." Now, there's this key word there. It says therefore, right?
Also, ja, da ist dieses Schlüsselwort und das heißt, wenn ihr nun, oder?
And
Ja.
therefore is referring to all the things that just come before it, right?
Und das bezieht sich auf all die Dinge, die eben zuvor waren.
Okay, so we know.
Ja, deshalb.
Okay, so we understand that the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet is marking the Sunday law crisis when it's set up, right?
Also dieses Gräuel der Verwüstung, was durch den Propheten Daniel gesprochen wurde, das ist eben, wenn das Sonntagsgesetz aufgestellt wird.
But we've understood for some time that the Sunday law is just typifying the 7 last plagues, right?
Aber wir haben schon seit einiger Zeit verstanden, dass das Sonntagsgesetz typifiziert nur die 7 letzten Plagen.
And when you go through the Sunday law, it brings you down to the judgment at the end, right?
Und wenn wir durch das Sonntagsgesetz gehen, dann bringt dich das zum Gericht am Ende.
And the judgment is the focal point because it's the 7th plague, right?
Und das Gericht ist ja dieser Fokuspunkt, denn es ist ja das Ende. Oder what did I say?
Seventh plague.
Oh, es ist die 7. Plage.
Oh, okay, right. So, so we want to look. I want to now go to the book of Daniel and see what the book of Daniel is saying about the abomination of desolation. Right?
Und jetzt gehen wir zum Buch Daniel und schauen uns an, was Daniel sagt. Dieses Gräuel der Verwüstung.
Okay. So, I want to clarify some things that have been brought to my attention and help us to see this very clearly.
Und ich möchte da auch ein paar Dinge klären und möchte, dass wir das eben klar sehen.
Okay, so in Daniel, let's go to Daniel chapter 7 and verse 1.
Also wir gehen zu Daniel 7 und Vers 1.
So it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed, and he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. The first was like a lion. Which one did he? Where was the lion?
Also
First, right?
der Löwe war der Erste.
And had eagle's wings, and I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second like unto a bear. So which beast was the bear?
Also welches Tier war der Bär?
It's the second,
Das
right?
Zweite.
And it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. And after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Right? So
Vers 7.
we see 4 beasts here, right?
Also wir sehen 4 Tiere hier.
And they represent Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome.
Und sie stellen Babylon, Medo-Persien, Griechenland und Rom dar.
And in history, which order did those kingdoms come in?
Und in der Geschichte, in welcher Reihenfolge kamen diese Königreiche?
Okay, now you're saying that as if that's a strange thing, but it's strange to a lot of people when they're reading the Bible, right?
Also sie kamen der Reihenfolge, wie es geschrieben steht. Und uns mag das vielleicht klar sein, aber vielen anderen Leuten vielleicht nicht.
And you'll see what I mean in a minute. You'll get my point, right? It's a chronological, historical rundown, right?
Also es ist eine chronologische, historische Reihenfolge, wie das eben
Right.
dargelegt ist.
Okay, and Sister White takes these 4 kingdoms, right, and she says that they run down to the close of this earth's history, right? It's the final rise and fall of earthly kingdoms.
Und Schwester White nimmt eben diese 4 Königreiche und sagt eben, dass es diese letzte Reihenfolge eben von diesen Königreichen, also dieses Auf- und Niederkommen von diesen Königreichen.
Okay, so when we go to the board, right? Head of gold, right? From Daniel 2. Body of silver, waist of bronze, takes you down to the 4th. The legs and the feet. Takes you down to when Christ comes, right? It's the 7th plague.
Und wenn wir zur Tafel gehen, dann haben wir hier so das Gold oder den Kopf, das Silber, so diese Brust, diese Hüftenbronze und die Beine und die Füße. Also das ist das 4. Königreich und das bringt dich dann zur 7. Plage, wo eben Christus kommt.
Right?
Yes.
Chronology has its place, right? Because God is a God of order. Right?
Und Chronologie hat ja seinen Platz, denn Gott ist ja ein Gott der Ordnung.
Okay, so when you take something from history and bring it into prophecy, you can't just mingle the order about, right? God is a God of order, right?
Also wenn du etwas von der Geschichte nimmst und das dann eben in die Prophetie bringst, dann kann man es eben nicht durcheinander mischen, denn Gott ist ja ein Gott der Ordnung.
Okay, now the point I want to make from this first bit we've looked at is that the lion and the bear here, the Bible then explains that the lion and the bear is one kingdom. right?
Also der Punkt zu diesem Löwe und Bär ist eben, dass die Bibel, die erklärt dann, dass der Löwe und der Bär ein Königreich ist.
Right?
Richtig?
So the Bible is the one that's explaining to us these things, right? Not human wisdom.
Also die Bibel muss uns das erklären eben, dass das so ist und nicht menschliche Weisheit.
Right? Okay. So when you go to verse 8,
So wenn wir zu Vers 8 gehen,
it says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. So the Bible here tells us that this little horn that comes up amongst this fourth beast is another little horn, right?
und die Bibel sagt uns eben, dass dieses weitere kleine Horn, ja, was aufkommt, das ist eben ein weiteres Horn sozusagen.
So if there's another little horn, there must have been a first little horn, right?
So wenn das ein weiteres kleines Horn ist, dann muss ja zuerst ein erstes Horn muss es geben.
Okay, and we'll come to that in a moment, right?
Wir werden zu dem gleich kommen.
Okay. So I consider the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom were three of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were the eyes of a man and a mouth speaking great things. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the ancient of days did sit. Right, so verse 8, we know that it's referring to the papacy, right? This man that speaks proud and swelling things, right?
Also wir wissen ja, dass Vers 8, das bezieht sich auf das Papsttum, also der Mann, der was einfach stolze Reden macht.
And the papacy ends where?
Und das Papsttum endet wo?
1798, right?
1798.
And in Revelation 17 and verse 1, what is it pointing to?
Und Offenbarung 17 und Vers 1, worauf weist das hin?
It's pointing to the seventh plague, right?
Also es weist auf die 7. Plage.
Because right here it's teaching us that the legs and feet, what are iron and clay?
Und was ist
Church
ja
and state, right?
Eisen und Ton, also Kirche und Staat?
It's 1260,
Es ist die 1260.
right? And it brings us to the judgment, right?
Und es bringt uns zu dem Gericht.
So I put it to you that the angel that comes to John to show him the judgment is the seventh angel. It's this one with the seventh plague, right?
Also der Engel, der zu Johannes kommt in Offenbarung 17, das ist der Engel mit der 7. Plage.
Right?
Richtig?
Maris, are you paying attention? Yes, I want you. Okay, so you weren't paying attention. Revelation 17, I'm saying that the conclusion that come to is that it says one of the 7 angels, right? So when you bring all the scripture together, which angel is it?
Also er sagt ja in Offenbarung 17, Vers 1, einer der 7 Engel. Und wenn wir all die Schriften zusammenbringen, also
Because he's
das ist
showing
dann
the
der 7.
judgment on the whore, right?
Er zeigt dir das Gericht dieser Hure.
And the judgment on the whore is in the next chapter, right? Revelation 18, right?
Und das Gericht für diese Hure ist im nächsten Kapitel, Offenbarung 18.
So what happens to the whore in Revelation 18?
Und was passiert mit dieser Hure in Offenbarung 18?
Okay. Life Sketches 411, what does she say?
Also LS 411, was sagt Schwester weiter?
When those great buildings come down, Revelation 18, 1-3 will be fulfilled.
Also wenn diese großen Gebäude runterkommen, dann wird Offenbarung 18, 1-3 erfüllt.
What happens at the seventh plague?
Und was passiert zur 7. Plage?
All the cities are wasted, right?
Also all diese Städte, sie werden eben zerstört oder verwüstet.
Okay, so we know that the punishment, or these things that we've been looking at down in this, by this final review that we have here, is illustrating a punishment upon the cities, right?
Also all diese Bestrafungen, die wir uns immer angeschaut haben, das sind finale Untersuchungen und so, ist eben diese Zerstörung der Städte oder Bestrafung auf den Städten.
So the Bible doesn't tell us that it's the 7th plague, but you can come to those conclusions because the Bible, when you bring things together, it gives you that understanding, right?
Also die Bibel sagt uns nicht, dass es die 7. Plage ist, aber wir können zu diesen Schlussfolgerungen kommen, wenn wir eben alles zusammenbringen.
Okay, so verse 8 finishes, right? And then what do we see in verse 9?
Also Vers 8 schließt ab und was sehen wir dann in Vers 9?
I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like a fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was said, and the books were opened. Where does this take us to?
Und wohin bringt uns das?
Historically, it was 1844, right?
Also in der Geschichte war es 1844,
Where the Millerites thought the Lord was coming to burn the earth up with fire, right?
wo die Milleriten dachten, der Herr würde kommen, um eben die Erde zu verbrennen mit Feuer.
But what is the perfect fulfillment of it?
Aber was ist die perfekte Erfüllung davon?
Yes, but it's marking the point where Christ says, it is done, right?
Also es markiert den Punkt, wo Christus sagt, es ist getan.
And when Christ says it is done, he goes out, he places the sins on the scapegoat, right?
Und
And-
wenn Christus das sagt, dann geht er raus und zieht eben die Sünden auf den Sündenbock
And the plagues begin to pour out, right?
und die Plagen beginnen sich
But
auszugießen.
when we go to Revelation 16, quickly go to Revelation 16.
Wenn wir zur Offenbarung 16 gehen,
This is why we have in verse 17, yes, Revelation 16 and verse 17.
also Offenbarung 16 und Vers 17.
It says, and the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, right? So what you have here is you have the seventh vial being poured out, and then the very next chapter is Revelation 17, where this angel comes to John and says, I'm going to show you the judgment. He's just shown him the judgment, right?
Und wir haben eben hier diese 7. Schale, die ausgegossen wird. Und das nächste Kapitel ist genau dann Kapitel 17, wo eben dieser Engel kommt und ihm das Gericht zeigt. Und das ist ja das Gericht.
Because it says, the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air. There came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, it is done. Right? It's the end. Right?
Also es ist das Ende.
So the very next thing you see, John is now in 1798, which is the end. And the angel, the seventh angel, comes to him and says, I will show thee the judgment of this great whore. And he takes him back in time and says, this is why this punishment came upon her. Right?
Also und genau im nächsten Kapitel haben wir dann Johannes, der auch am Ende, also 1798 steht. Und dieser Engel kommt dann zu ihm und zeigt ihm eben das Gericht und bringt ihn eben zurück.
Okay, so the point I want you to see,
Zeigt
right?
ihm, warum dieses Gericht ist.
In Daniel 7, you have a rundown of the four beasts, and it brings you to the judgment. Right?
Also in Daniel haben wir eben, in Daniel 7 haben wir eben diese Reihenfolge von diesen Tieren und das bringt dich dann zum Gericht.
Okay. Now go to back to Daniel chapter 7.
So, wir gehen zurück zu Daniel 7.
So you see these four beasts, the judgment sits, and God's people are given the kingdom, right?
Also wir sehen diese 4 Tiere, das Gericht setzt sich und Gottes Volk wird eben das Königreich gegeben.
Go to verse 15.
Und jetzt gehen wir zu Vers 15.
I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. So Daniel didn't understand, and now the angel's going to repeat what he's just shown him, right?
Also Daniel hat es nicht verstanden und jetzt wird der Engel das wiederholen, was er ihm gezeigt hat.
It says, verse 17,
Also Vers 17.
these great beasts which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever and ever. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron and his nails of brass, which devoured, brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with its feet. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes like a mouth, that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So all this is taking place under the fourth, right?
Also all das findet stand unter diesem 4.
So the fourth is a subject of Bible prophecy.
Also dieses vierte ist auch Thema der biblischen Prophetie.
Okay, and Christ comes in the fourth, right?
Und Christus kommt im vierten.
Okay. So, jump down now. Okay, go to verse 25.
Also wir kommen jetzt herab zu Vers 25.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until times of the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume, to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, and I kept the matter in my heart. So in this chapter, 2 times the angel gives him a rundown, historically, in order, right?
Also in diesem Kapitel gibt dieser Engel ihm eben zweimal diese Erzählung eben in ihrer Reihenfolge.
And it leads to the end, right, where the judgment is brought upon this fourth kingdom and God's people inherit the kingdom, right?
Und das führt dich eben zum Ende, wo dieses Gericht, dieses letzte Königreich gebracht wird und Gottes Volk erbt eben das Königreich.
Okay, now go to Daniel chapter 8.
Und jetzt gehen wir zu Daniel 8.
Daniel chapter 8 is a repeat of Daniel chapter 7,
Und Daniel 8 ist eine Wiederholung von Daniel 7.
right?
Richtig?
Daniel 7 is speaking about the political kingdoms. Daniel 8 is speaking about the religious aspect of those kingdoms.
Und Daniel 7 spricht eben über diese politischen Königreiche und Daniel 8 über diese religiösen Seiten dieser Mächte.
Okay, let's begin. Verse 1.
Vers 1.
And what I want you to see, you have exactly the same pattern, right?
Und hier haben wir eben genau dieses selbe Muster.
Because it says, in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared to me unto the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Uliah. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns. So which kingdom is this?
Also welches Königreich ist
Literally,
das? Buchstäblich.
Medo-Persia, right?
Medo-Persien.
But what sort of power is it?
Aber was für eine Macht ist das?
2 horns, right?
Zweihörnig.
And these 2 horns parallel the lion and the bear, right?
Diese 2 Hörner sind parallel mit dem Löwen und dem Bären.
Okay? Now, in Daniel chapter 7, the lion, the bear, the leopard, and the dragon, right, where are they also illustrated?
Und in Daniel 7, der Löwe, der Bär, der Leopard. Und das 4. Tier, wo ist das auch noch dargestellt?
Revelation 13.
And Revelation 13 is speaking about which power?
In Offenbarung 13. Und Offenbarung 13 spricht über welche Macht?
No, which, Margaret, not how many. Which power? The papacy,
Spricht über das Papsttum,
which ruled from 538 to 1798, right?
was von 508 bis 1798 regiert hat.
Okay, so the point that I want to make is that these 4 beasts are illustrating a period of time, right?
Also diese 4 Tiere, sie stellen eben eine Zeitperiode dar,
At the end of the world,
am
right?
Ende der Welt.
And you'll see why this is important at the moment, right?
Und ihr werdet gleich sehen, warum das wichtig ist.
But Daniel 8 begins with Medo-Persia, but Daniel 7 begins with Babylon, right?
Und Daniel 8 beginnt ja mit Medo-Persien, aber Daniel 7 mit Babylon.
But I want you to see that those 4 beasts represent the 1260,
Aber ich möchte euch zeigen, dass diese 4 Tiere, sie stellen die 1260
which is the
dar.
Sunday law crisis, right?
Was auch die Sonntagsgesetze
Which is the
ist.
abomination of desolation, right?
Was auch dieses Gräuel der Verwüstung ist.
But here it begins with Medo-Persia because the Lord wants to parallel 2 prophecies, right?
Aber hier beginnt es eben mit Medo-Persien, weil der Herr möchte eben 2 Weissagungen parallel setzen.
Which prophecy began with Medo-Persia?
Und welche Weissagung hat mit Medo-Persien begonnen?
It takes you to the end.
Was dich bis zum Ende
Daniel.
bringt.
Yes.
No. Okay, maybe my question. Which time prophecy begins with Medo-Persia and takes you to the end?
Also welche
Right.
Zeitprophetie beginnt mit Medo-Persien und bringt dich dann auch zum Ende?
2300.
The 2,300 days, right?
Also die 2300 Tage.
So what I want you to see, right, is that the Bible is taking the 2,300 days from Medo-Persia, taking you to the end, right?
Und die Bibel nimmt eben diese 2300 Tage von Medo-Persien, die bringen dich dann zum Ende.
But Daniel 7 is taking you, is illustrating the 1260 that begins and takes you to the end. And he's paralleling these two prophecies, right?
Aber Daniel 7 stellt eben diese 1260 dar, die dich bis zum Ende bringt. Und das setzt eben parallel diese zwei Zeitprophezeiungen.
Okay, so just come down in Daniel 8 now to verse 9.
Und jetzt kommen wir herab zu Vers 9 in Daniel 8.
So it says, and out of one of them, this is talking about Greece now, right? Just exactly, because, let's read verse 8, excuse me.
Also lesen wir zuvor noch Vers 8.
Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. Did we see this in Daniel 7?
Haben wir das in Daniel 7 auch gesehen?
A lot of quiet. We saw it in Daniel 7, right? Exact same illustration, right?
Ja, also wir haben das auch in Daniel 7 gesehen. Genau
And it
dasselbe
leads
Darstellung.
you to verse 9,
Und
right?
das führt dich dann zu Vers 9.
In Daniel 7, it leads you to the fourth kingdom, because the third kingdom is Greece, which is we're speaking about here, right?
Und in Daniel 7 bringt dich dann das zum vierten Königreich.
Because Greece is the third kingdom, right?
Denn Griechenland ist ja das dritte Königreich.
So, verse 8, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. So what's the little horn?
Also was ist dieses kleine Horn?
If you, no, Margaret, it's not the papacy. Pay attention to what I'm asking, right? In Daniel chapter 7, the third kingdom was followed by the fourth kingdom, right?
Also in Daniel 7 wurde ja, also nach dem dritten kam ja dann das vierte Königreich.
So here in Daniel 8 and verse 8 you have Greece, which is the third kingdom. So when you come to Daniel 9 and this little horn comes up, which kingdom is it?
Hier in Daniel 8, Vers 8 haben wir auch das dritte Königreich. Und es führt dich dann zu Vers 9. Da haben wir wieder dieses kleine Horn. Also, was ist das dann?
Before the other.
Still not maybe getting what I'm saying. It's the fourth kingdom,
Also
right?
es ist auch das vierte Königreich.
Right? So the fourth kingdom, because when you come to the fourth kingdom, we read in Daniel 8, out of that fourth kingdom comes what?
Denn
Did I say? Okay, sorry, we read in Daniel 7, when the fourth kingdom comes up, out of that kingdom comes what?
Denn wir haben gelesen in Daniel 7, bei diesem vierten Königreich, was kommt da hervor?
Another little horn, right?
Ein anderes kleines
So when you take those two prophecies and you parallel them together, you have a little horn followed by another little horn, right?
Wenn wir eben diese zwei Prophetien zueinander legen, dann haben wir ein anderes kleines Horn und ein kleines Horn.
And they all come in their order, right?
Und sie kommen alle in ihrer Reihenfolge.
Okay, so when we know that the subject of Bible prophecy is speaking about the fourth,
Also wenn wir wissen, dass das Thema der Prophetie eben über dieses vierte spricht,
the fourth kingdom is what sort of power?
da ist das vierte Königreich was für eine Macht.
And you compare Daniel 8 with Daniel 7, bring them together.
Also wenn man jetzt Daniel 7 und Daniel 8 zusammenbringt,
It's a two-horned power, right?
das ist eine zweihörnige Macht.
That's what the Bible wants you to see,
Und
right?
das ist auch, was die Bibel dir zu sehen geben möchte.
So, Daniel 7 begins with a two-horned power, the lion and the bear.
Also Daniel 7 beginnt mit dieser zweihörnigen Macht, also den Löwen und den Bären.
Daniel 8 begins with a two-horned power, right?
Und auch Daniel 8 beginnt mit dieser zweihörnigen Macht.
Okay? And it's very purposeful when we have here two horns and two horns, right?
Und Und wir haben ja hier auch sozusagen 2 Hörner und 2 Hörner.
Because when you come to the Sunday law again, it's a two-horned power, right?
Denn wenn wir zum Sonntagsgesetz kommen, dann haben wir wieder eine zweihörnige Macht.
And it has to parallel right here, so you have a two-horned power, right?
Und das muss ja hierzu parallel sein. Da haben wir dann auch eine zweihörnige Macht.
Okay? But the two-horned power here, when we line upon line with the story of Egypt, it's 7 plagues, right?
Diese zweihörnige Macht sind eben die 7 Plagen mit der, also in der Linie von Mose.
So the two horns is going to rule for 1260 until the judgment sits, right?
Also die zweihörnige Macht, die wird eben regieren für die 1260, bis sich das Gericht setzt.
Right? Exactly the same as what's been illustrated here, right?
Dasselbe, was auch hier dargestellt wird.
Right? So the abomination of desolation, that's what Sister White did. She took them, showed that it's the Sunday law, but it's also the 7 last plagues, right?
Also wir haben hier das Gräuel der Verwüstung und auch hier. Das ist auch, was Schwester White tat. Also sie platziert es einmal im Sonntagsgesetz und einmal in den 7 Plagen.
But you have to understand the natural first in order to understand the spiritual, right?
Aber wir müssen ja zuerst das Natürliche verstehen und dann das Geistliche.
Amen?
Amen.
Because if you don't put the natural in the correct order, then the spiritual will not be understood.
Denn wenn wir nicht das Natürliche in die korrekte Reihenfolge setzen, dann können wir auch das Geistliche nicht verstehen.
So go back to Daniel 8, right?
Und wir gehen zurück zu Daniel 8,
And verse 9.
in Vers 9.
So we're all happy, right? Because you'll see that Daniel 8, right? It gives you a rundown to the 4th kingdom. And if we just go down to verse 13, which is the end of the 4th kingdom.
Also Daniel 8 gibt dir diese Reihenfolge von diesen 4 Königreichen und wenn wir dann zu Vers 13 kommen, was das Ende ist,
No,
dieser
that is the end of the 4th kingdom.
ja, was das Ende ist von dem 4. Königreich.
Okay, that's important because Daniel 7 listed out 4 kingdoms, then it took you to which point?
Denn Daniel 7 hat ja diese 4 Königreiche aufgezählt und dann hat es dich zu was gebracht?
The judgment, right?
Zum Gericht.
Daniel 8 does the same. It lays out the 4 kingdoms and it brings you to verse 14,
Und, dann,
verse 30.
und Daniel 8 macht genau dasselbe. Also es legt diese 4 Königreiche aus, dann bringt dich das zu Vers 13.
And what does he say? He says, Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain same saint, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Okay? So, takes you back to the beginning of the vision, Medo-Persia, and he's asking how long to the end of this vision we just saw. Right?
Also es bringt dich zurück zu dem Anfang, also von den 2300 zu Medo-Persien. Das fragt dann eben, wie lange gilt dieses Gesicht.
And he says 2,300 days, right?
Und es sagt 2300 Tage.
And verse 17,
Und jetzt Vers 17.
it says, So he came near where I stood, and when he came I was afraid and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So when's the end of the vision?
Also wann ist das Ende des Gesichtes, der Vision?
The time of the end, right?
Zur Zeit des Endes.
Okay, last point I want to make, right? Sorry, 2 more points. Have I missed that point? Oh no, it's further down. Sorry, right, so it says, by the time of the end will be the vision. In verse 19,
Und jetzt Vers 19.
it says, And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for the time appointed the end shall be. Right? So he tells them, right, so just, let's rub this off. It's not necessary at this point in time. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 kingdoms, right?
Also 4 Königreiche haben wir.
And what I want you to understand, right, is that Daniel 7 is a representation of the 1260,
Und Daniel 7 ist ja eine Darstellung dieser 1260.
right? That brings you to, where does the 1260 end?
Und wo endet diese 1260?
Time of the end, right?
Zur Zeit des Endes.
Okay? And Daniel 8, right, shows you the exact same vision again. And he says, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed, right?
Und Daniel 8 sagt er genau dieselbe Vision wieder und es sagt dann bis zu 2300 Tage und dann wird das Heiligtum gereinigt werden.
Okay, this time it begins with Medo-Persia, where that vision began, and it's going to bring you to the time of the end, right?
Und diesmal beginnt es mit Medo-Persien und das bringt dich dann auch zur Zeit des Endes,
Which is the time appointed.
was auch die bestimmte Zeit ist.
Okay, you'll see where I'm going in a minute. These are all things we know, but you just have to bring these things together, right?
Und das sind ja alles Dinge, die wir schon wissen. Wir müssen das eben zusammenbringen.
Okay, now, so, okay, now when you go back to Daniel 8 in verse 20, right?
Also wir gehen zurück zu Daniel 8 und jetzt Vers 20.
So the four kingdoms are listed. Then the angel asks the question, how long? And it's explained. And then it comes back and he explains it again, just like he did in Daniel chapter 7, right?
Also wir haben eben diese 4 Königreiche aufgelistet und dann kommt eben dieser Engel und fragt, wie lange, dann wird ihm das erklärt. Und dann wird eben nochmal das wiederholt, also die 4 Königreiche.
Just
So
like
genau-
it did in Daniel 7.
Genauso wie in Daniel 7.
Okay, verse 20.
Vers 20.
The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the great kings of Media and Persia. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. And the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. Verse 23.
Vers 23.
And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sense shall stand up. This is this little horn, right? Pagan Rome.
Und das ist dieses kleine Horn, also das heidnische Rom.
But notice, let's just read down to the end, to verse 27.
Lass uns bis zum Ende, Vers 27 lesen.
Now look what it says. It says, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify in himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. So how many kingdoms is there?
Also wie viele Königreiche sind hier?
How many he's is there?
Also wie viele sind hier?
Not how many times did I say he, I'm meaning how many he's is it talking about?
Also jetzt nicht, wie oft ist dieses Wort er verwendet, sondern über wie viele Menschen spricht es. Oder
One, right? It's one kingdom.
über einen, also ein Königreich.
But we know, right? We know from Daniel 7, right? That there's 2 little horns there, right?
Und wir wissen ja von Daniel 7, dass es 2 kleine Hörner gibt.
So when we go back now to Daniel 8, verse 9,
Wenn wir zu Daniel 8, Vers 9 zurückgehen,
okay? Daniel 8, verses 9 through to 12 is the history of these 2 little horns.
und Daniel 8, Vers 9 bis 12 ist eben diese Geschichte dieser 2 kleinen Hörner.
Because it's the 4th kingdom,
Das
right?
ist das 4. Königreich.
And how is the angel illustrating the history of pagan and papal Rome?
Und wie stellt der Engel diese Geschichte von heidnischen, päpstlichen Rom dar?
How did it illustrate all the other kingdoms?
Wie hat er all diese anderen Königreiche dargestellt?
They come in order,
Sie
right?
kommen in ihrer Reihenfolge.
right?
Richtig?
Okay. Verse 9.
Jetzt Vers 9.
So it says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great towards the south, towards the east of pleasant land. This is the first little horn, pagan Rome, right?
Also das ist dieses erste kleine Horn, also heidnisches Rom.
And it, pagan Rome, waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and cast down some of the host and the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. It started persecuting God's people, right?
Also es beginnt, Gottes Volk zu verfolgen.
So by the time you get to the time of Christ, Rome is already an oppressive power and the Jews hate the Romans and want to be delivered from the Romans, right?
Wenn wir dann schon zur Zeit Christi kommen, dann werden eben die Juden von Rom sozusagen verfolgt und die Juden hassen die Römer.
So when you come to verse 11,
Wenn wir zu Vers 11 kommen,
it says, yeah, he, same power,
also
verse 11.
ja, also da steht,
No, don't say what it says in the German, just translate what I'm pointing out, because German's not correct.
German is not good in these verse. It's translated
es-
from the King James.
sagt er.
Okay. Yeah, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. That's Christ, right? Pagan Rome put him on the cross.
Also das ist bei Christus, also das päpstliche, also das heidnische Rom hat ihn auf das Kreuz gebracht.
Und steht, und er hat sich bis zum Fürsten des Heeres erhoben. Und das ist die Kreuzigung.
Okay.
Ja, also
Daniel, just translate. Don't read out of that, please. It says, he magnified himself to the prince of the host, right? This is pagan Rome putting Christ on the cross.
Also das ist das heidnische Rom, was Christus auf das Kreuz bringt.
It says, and by him, pagan Rome, the daily was taken away, right? And the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So, what's the place of his sanctuary?
Also was ist dieser Platz seines Heiligtums?
Rome.
Rom.
When was Rome cast down?
Und wann wurde Rom heruntergebracht?
331, right?
330.
Oh, okay, 330.
So 330.
Okay, 331 is when he makes the Sunday law, right?
300.
320.
321.
I need to 321. 321 he makes Sunday law. I have to put my mind back on those dates. But the point I want to make is, right, that so prior to Rome being cast down, what happens?
Also bevor eben Rom heruntergebracht wird, was passiert?
Okay, there's a Sunday law, right?
There's
Now,
a
I want to give you two
Sonntagsgesetz.
witnesses for that, right?
Ich möchte euch 2 Zeugen dafür geben.
So, the time of the end, right, is the time appointed.
Also die Zeit des Endes ist auch die bestimmte Zeit.
The time appointed, according to Galatians chapter 4, is the birth, which is the resurrection, right?
Und die bestimmte Zeit gemäß Galater 4 ist die Geburt, was auch die Auferweckung ist.
So, we looked at this, right? So, the destruction of Jerusalem, what must happen before the destruction of Jerusalem?
Und bei der Zerstörung von Jerusalem, was muss vor der Zerstörung passieren?
Who destroyed Jerusalem in the
Wer-
time of the Jews?
Wer hat Jerusalem zerstört in der Zeit der Juden?
Titus, right?
Titus.
What had to come prior to that?
Und was musste vor ihm kommen?
And what does it represent? Right, say, so let's
Und Cestius musste kommen.
Cestius, followed by, I'll just put Titus here, right?
Also Cestius, gefolgt von Titus.
That's what has to come first, right?
Die 1260 muss eben zuvor kommen.
So there has to be a Sunday law that leads to the destruction of the cities, right?
Also da muss ein Sonntagsgesetz sein, was zu dieser Zerstörung der Städte führt.
Okay? Because in Revelation 17:1, the angel has the 7 last plagues. He's illustrating the punishment on the cities because of the rule of the man of sin, right?
Denn in Offenbarung 17, Vers 1, da hat dieser Engel diese 7 letzten Plagen und stellt eben diese Zerstörung der Städte eben dar, wegen dieser Herrschaft von diesem Mann der Sünde.
Okay, now go to Revelation chapter 8, right? I want to show you something, right?
Zu Offenbarung 8. Ich möchte euch etwas zeigen.
Because it says here, we just read in Daniel 8:11, by him, pagan Rome, the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So this, what I want you to see is the daily taken away by pagan Rome leads to the fall of Rome, right?
Which verse was it?
8:11.
Also, okay. Also in Daniel 8, Vers 11, da haben wir gelesen, dass durch ihn also das Tägliche hinweggenommen wurde und
Der Platz seines Heiligtums wurde niedergebrochen.
der Platz seines Heiligtums wurde niedergeworfen.
Okay.
Und das letztendlich er jetzt zeigen möchte, dass durch das Niederwerfen des Täglichen dann auch Rom, also die Stadt Rom dadurch zerstört wurde.
Okay, und durch das Niederwerfen dieses Täglichen dann auch die Stadt Rom zerstört.
Okay, so, right, it says, so, Revelation chapter 8,
Jetzt gehen wir zur Offenbarung 8,
verse 5.
in Vers 5.
It says, the angel took the censer and filled it with fire off the altar and cast it unto the earth. What's Christ doing and what does it mark?
Also was tut hier Christus und was markiert das?
Come on, brothers and sisters, let's pay attention. What's he doing and what does it signify?
Also was tut er und was stellt das dar?
What's he doing? He's casting censer to the earth, and what does it illustrate?
Also er werft dieses
Yes, we'll come to that. But it's the close of probation, right?
So ist das, also das Ende der Gnadenzeit.
And we read, when you bring it down, it is done, right? It's marking this point perfectly, right?
Und indem wir lesen, dass es hier so geschehen ist und das markiert diesen Punkt perfekt.
And he cast down these hot coals, which is the burning coals coming down upon Sodom and Gomorrah, which is Babylon, which is Jerusalem, which is the destruction of the cities, right?
Und er wirft eben diese heißen Kohlen auf die Erde, was eben diese Zerstörung der Städte ist, eben durch die, also in der Zerstörung von Babylon, Jerusalem, Sodom und Gomorrah.
Right. Okay. So now go to Joshua chapter 10 and verse 11.
Und jetzt gehen wir zu Josua 10 und Vers 11.
It says, and it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Betharon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them unto Azekah, and they died. What did the Lord do?
So was hat der Herr getan?
He cast down great stones from heaven, right?
Also er hat große Steine vom Himmel fallen lassen.
Okay, go now to Isaiah chapter 28 and verse 2.
Und jetzt gehen wir zu Jesaja 28 und Vers 22. Which verse?
Verse 2, Daniela.
So Vers 2.
It says, behold, the Lord hath a mighty and strong one, which as a tempest, right? So Ezekiel, what does he see coming?
Also was sieht
Which is a tempest, right?
so ein Wirbelsturm, was auch diese Sturmwind ist.
Okay. Which as a tempest of hail and a destroying storm, as a flood of mighty waters overflowing, shall cast down to the earth with a hand, right? So how's it going to come, this whirlwind?
Also wie kommt es, dieser Wirbelsturm?
He's going to cast it down to the earth,
So er
right?
wird es herunterwerfen auf die Erde.
We've looked at this. These are the same illustrations because these hailstones here are these coals of fire, right?
Und dieser Hagel hier sind ja diese Kohlen des Feuers.
Okay. Last verse that I want you to look at in relation to this, and I wrote them down this morning, is Ezekiel 31 and verse 16.
Also Hesekiel 31 und Vers 16.
And this is speaking about Satan, who falls like lightning from heaven at the cross when he says, it is done, right?
Und das spricht von Satan, wenn er wie ein Blitz eben vom Himmel herabkommt. Und das ist zum Kreuz, wenn er eben sagt, es ist geschehen.
It says, I made the nations to shake at the sound of his fall. How did he fall?
Also wie ist er gefallen?
No, I said that. In Revelation 12, how did he fall? How is it illustrated?
In Offenbarung 12, wie fällt er da? Wie ist das dargestellt?
Great falling fires.
Not in Revelation 12, it's not. He's cast down to the earth,
Also er wird heruntergeworfen auf die Erde.
right? Because at the cross it says he's cast down and his angels were cast down with him, right?
Denn am Kreuz, da wurde er eben runtergeworfen, seine Engel mit ihm.
Right?
Richtig?
So the falling stars are these balls of fire that are coming down, and the four winds are loosed and they're coming down and they're smashing the cities, right?
Also diese
Can you just put it on your own words, right?
what is the fire, balls of fire? What did you say?
When Revelation 12, when the angels are cast out and Satan is cast out and the angels are cast out with him, it's using the same language, right? These are these balls of fire falling to the earth.
Also in Offenbarung 12, wenn eben Satan und seine Engel heruntergeworfen werden, sind eben diese Feuerbälle, die auf die Erde geworfen werden und diese 4 Winde und es wird eben gelöst.
Okay, back to Revelation 8. Which powers destroyed Rome?
Jetzt gehen wir zurück zur Offenbarung 8 und welche Macht hat Rom zerstört?
The trumpet powers, right?
Also diese Mächte von Posaunen.
And the 7 trumpets are a type of the 7 last plagues, right?
Und die 7 Posaunen sind ja ein Typus für die 7 letzten Plagen.
So, you get this point in a minute. So, here in Revelation 8 and verse 10,
Also hier in der Offenbarung 8 und Vers 10
is marking one of the trumpet powers that was responsible for casting down Rome, right?
es markiert dann eine von diesen Mächten von den Posaunen, die was eben Rom herniedergeworfen haben.
Right, verse 10. It says, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven. Who's this?
Und wer ist das hier? Dieser Stern.
No, not literally. It's Satan, right?
Es ist Satan.
And he's been cast down, right?
Und er wird heruntergeworfen.
There fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of water. So this is Satan, right? And all his angels are cast out with him, right?
So das ist Satan und all seine Engel werden mit ihm herabgeworfen.
And it's typifying the 7 plagues,
Und das
right?
typifiziert die 7 Plagen.
And Attila was one of the powers responsible for destroying Rome.
Und Attila war eben einer dieser Mächte, die was verantwortlich waren, dass sie Rom zerstört haben.
So prior to pagan Rome, the capital city of pagan Rome, what must pagan Rome do?
Also vor diesem...
No, Margaret. Okay, that's actually correct. Sorry, I'm thinking. Go back to Daniel 8. I want the answer from there, right? Back to Daniel 8, but it's the correct answer. Go back to Daniel 8 and verse.
Jetzt gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 8
Verse 11.
und Vers 11.
So it says, and he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So the place of his sanctuary is Rome, right?
Also dieser Platz seines Heiligtums ist ja Rom.
And it's talking about the destruction of Rome, right?
Und es spricht über diese Zerstörung von Rom.
So if we go by the pattern, what must happen before Rome is cast down?
Und wenn wir jetzt gemäß dem Muster gehen, was muss passieren, bevor eben Rom...
Ju-
Ja,
Now, Margaret gave the right answer, but it's written here. I want you, what must they do written in this verse?
also jetzt gemäß diesem Vers, das müssen sie tun.
They must take away the daily, right?
Sie müssen das Tägliche hinwegnehmen.
So if they're taking away the daily, we know it's marking a Sunday law. Who was the pagan king that made a Sunday law?
Und das Hinwegnehmen des Täglichen, das wissen wir, das ist das Sonntagsgesetz. Welcher heidnische König hat das eben gemacht?
Constantine, right?
Konstantin.
Constantine takes away the daily and it leads to the destruction of Rome, right?
Also Konstantin nimmt das Tägliche hinweg und das führt zu der Zerstörung von Rom.
Sunday law, national apostasy brings national ruin, right?
Also Sonntagsgesetz, nationaler Abfall bringt auch nationalen Ruin.
And now when we go to verse 12, right?
Und wenn wir jetzt zu Vers 12
The
gehen,
history repeats,
dann
right?
wiederholt sich die Geschichte.
Because pagan and papal Rome as one kingdom, and it's trying to show you that they both are doing the same thing, right? Because it's a two-horned power.
Denn das heidnische und das päpstliche Rom, das ist ja ein Königreich und sie werden eben dasselbe machen, wenn es eine Macht.
Because in verse 12 it says, a host was given him. When was the host given?
Also wann wurde ihm dieses Heer gegeben?
David? Come on, you told me this last night. You even corrected me last night. No, when was the army given? We're now when was the army given to the 496, thank you, right? So we're now progressing, we've gone past that time, we're now in 496. There's an army given him, right?
496 wird ihm eine Armee gegeben.
Against what?
Gegen was?
The daily, right?
Das Tägliche.
We're now back in a different history, but the same thing is taking place. There's an army given him. What's the army going to do?
Dasselbe findet statt. Ein Herr wird ihm gegeben, was tut
It's going to take away the daily, right?
es nimmt das Tägliche hinweg.
Right, so this is Clovis now. Clovis gets given an army and he takes away the daily by reason of transgression. What's the reason of transgression?
Und das ist jetzt Chlodwig und er nimmt eben dieses Tägliche hinweg. Und aufgrund dieser Übertretung, und was ist diese Übertretung?
The Sunday law, when church and state come together, right?
Es ist das Sonntagsgesetz, also wenn Kirche und Staat zusammenkommen.
Both these things prophetically happen simultaneously.
Prophetically, they're parallels, yes, right?
Also prophetisch sind diese zwei Sachen eine Parallele.
But you have to see them historically first, because both pagan Rome is one little horn and the papacy is the other little horn, right?
Aber man muss es zuerst eben in der Geschichte sehen, denn das heidnische Rom ist ja ein kleines Horn und dann eben das päpstliche Rom ist das andere kleine Horn.
Because they're both a two-horned power and they both, one gives the other one the army and they both take away the daily and they both lead to the punishment at the end, which is the destruction of the cities, right?
Aber es ist eben beides ein Königreich, also das eine gibt dem anderen eine Armee und sie nehmen dann auch das Tägliche weg und das führt dann eben zu dieser Zerstörung.
So when you just put here Clovis, right, parallels the work what Constantine does, right?
Also Chlodwig ist das Werk, was er tut, ist parallel mit dem von Konstantin.
Because Daniel 11:31 says a host was given him, and he took away the daily, and he placed the abomination that maketh desolate, which is the papacy, right?
In Daniel 11, Vers 31 sagt er eben auch, dass ihm dieses Heer gegeben wurde und er das Tägliche weggenommen hat und dieses Gräuel der Verwüstung wurde eben aufgestellt.
Because that's why in Daniel chapter 8, when you go to verse 23, it talks about this fierce king. It's one king, right?
Und deswegen in Daniel 8, Vers 23, da spricht es über diesen grimmigen König und das ist eben ein Königreich.
And that fierce king is Satan, right? And it's his kingdom, and his kingdom is church and state. It's the paganism and papalism, these two horns, right?
Und dieser König ist eben Satan und er hat eben dieses eine Königreich, was
Heidnisch und päpstlich.
also das heidnische und päpstliche Rom ist, was also Kirche und Staat ist.
Because that's what it tells us, right, in Isaiah 14, right?
Und das sagt uns das ja auch in Jesaja 14.
In Isaiah 14, what did he want?
In Jesaja 14, was wollte Satan da?
He wanted church and state, right?
Er wollte Kirche und Staat.
And what did it lead to?
Und zu was hat das geführt?
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer?
Wie bist du gefallen vom Himmel, Luzifer?
And what did it say after that? And destroyed the cities, right?
Nachdem sagt es ja, er hat die Städte zerstört.
Right? Okay, so doesn't matter what men say about these verses, it's what the Bible shows about these verses, right?
Also es ist nicht wichtig, was Menschen sagen über diese Verse, sondern was die Bibel selbst sagt.
Okay, Christ is the pattern man, and we've got to follow the patterns that he's laying out to us, right?
Und Christus ist ja dieser Mann der Muster und wir müssen diesen Mustern folgen, die er ausgelegt hat.
Just a question. So when you say 330 Rome was destroyed, you mean the beginning of the Roman Empire?
Yeah, I mean the Vandals came, knocked down all the stuff. I mean Rome was burning, and all sorts of things happened to Rome.
330?
No,
Because you put 330.
no, 330 is marked in the Bible. Look, the Bible language is to teach you things, right?
No, you're talking about the literal things.
No, I'm not talking about literal things. We're bringing literal things together prophetically, right? So, how was Rome? What does it say about Rome there in that verse? In Daniel 8 and verse 11, what does it say?
No, my point is, you were saying that we have to understand the literal first and then to...
Yes. So the literal first is talking about the fall of Rome, right?
Yes.
Okay. Even it doesn't matter how it falls. It's marking. This is the point where Rome is no more.
I mean, wasn't destroyed. They just moved the capital.
Look,
Because you used the word Rome was destroyed.
listen, Marius.
Okay, the literal is not the case.
I'm bringing things together prophetically. Rome was what? Cast down, right? So we went to the Bible, and now the Bible is going to explain to us what it means, what that event brought together with lots of other events, what it represents, right?
Also die Frage war eben, dass 330, wurde nur eben die Hauptstadt verändert und da wurde jetzt Rom nicht so direkt zerstört oder dass es gebrannt hätte oder so, aber es sagt eben, dass es ja heruntergeworfen wurde und das müssen wir eben in der Bibel schauen, was das bedeutet und was es das erklärt.
Okay, look,
Prophetically, okay.
Rome was to rule for a time, right?
Und Rom musste ja für eine bestimmte Zeit regieren,
360 years, right?
also 360
So you
Jahre.
can easily see that the 360 years is a parallel to this time period, right?
Und wir können leicht sehen, dass diese 360 Jahre Parallele sind eben zu dieser Zeit.
Okay, now, I'll prove this point here. Go to.
I understand this, it's just...
No.
The literary was not destroyed, that's the only point that I make.
Marius, I'm never said that it was literally destroyed. I'm saying what it's pointing to, right?
Okay.
Also es heißt jetzt nicht,
It's okay, then you don't have to show me. I
Das-
understand.
No, I actually want to show you this point, right?
das heißt jetzt nicht,
Daniel
dass,
11, right?
das heißt jetzt nicht, dass Rom jetzt nicht buchstäblich zerstört wurde, aber es ist das, worauf es eben hinweist.
Because everything is proved by the Bible, right?
Und jetzt gehen wir zu Daniel 1,
Und 11.
oder, what?
11.
Also Daniel 11.
Because in Daniel, let's read the wrong place. In Daniel 11 it says, verse 24,
Also Daniel 11 und Vers 24.
it says, he shall enter in peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that for which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, the spoil, and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time, right? Now, when you go down to verse 29,
Wenn wir herabkommen bis Vers
When does-
29,
the 360 end,
wo enden diese 360?
The time of
at the time appointed, right?
Zur bestimmten Zeit,
Which is the time of the end.
was auch die Zeit des Endes ist.
And at the time of the end, in Revelation 17, the angel is standing there showing him the destruction of Babylon, right?
Und zur Zeit des Endes steht ja dieser Engel, also Johannes 17,98 und der Engel zeigt ihm eben diese Zerstörung von Babylon.
So This is what I'm trying to show. The fall, when it says the place of his sanctuary was cast down, is teaching us prophetically the point where Rome gets destroyed, right?
Also wenn es sagt, dass dieser Platz seines Heiligtums eben heruntergebracht wurde, dann zeigt uns das eben prophetisch diese Zerstörung.
I mean, Marius understands me now. Everybody else understand what I mean by that, right?
Versteht jeder, was ich damit meine?
Because it was the trumpet powers in Revelation 8, the ones that were used to punish Rome, and they're typifying the 7 last plagues, right?
Und es waren ja diese Posaunenmächte in Offenbarung 8, die was eben Rom zerstört haben. Und das typifiziert eben die 7 letzten Plagen.
Okay.
Question.
Uh,
It's just a thought because when we said that, because Marius makes the point, right, that in 330 Rome was not destroyed.
yes.
But we understand that it's also the beginning, right, because that's what this action basically marked the beginning of their downfall, correct?
Yes.
Also 330 zu diesem
But
Punkt.
it's also, but what I'm not arguing that point, I'm just making this point, when you bring these things together, the language there, the place of his sanctuary was cast down, when you take the Bible together, it's showing you the destruction of Rome, right?
The point that I was just asking myself is because verse 29 and Daniel 11, which is a continuum, which we mark this week as the beginning of the 1264, right?
Yes.
And it says at the beginning of the Sunday of Babylon is fallen.
Yes.
Whether that can not just say that the sanctuary was cast down, right? It marks the beginning of the fall of Babylon, but it is not fall until they have been finally
But
destroyed.
God is the Alpha and Omega, beginning and the end, right? So it's just showing both. But I'm just taking this, I'm not arguing your point about history or what it's showing or anything. I'm taking an illustration here and I'm showing this illustration, right? That's all I'm dealing with. I'm not arguing about these other things. Symbols have more than one signification, right? And the Bible is to be rightly divided. It shows us different things. In this illustration, it's marking prophetically the destruction of Rome, right? So it takes away the daily, leads to the destruction of Rome. Takes away the daily, 1260 leads to the destruction of Babylon, right? They're paralleling the same thing.
Also das tägliche wird weggenommen, das führt eben zur Zerstörung von Rom. Und tägliche wird dann auch wieder weggenommen, dann ist die 1260 und das führt eben auch zur Zerstörung von Babylon.
Okay, now I will just, you can read these quotes for yourself, right? But I just want to, because I can't do a presentation on this whole point, and this is the point I wanted to get to, right? So go to,
Also ihr könnt dann die Zitate für euch selber lesen.
okay. So go to Daniel 12, verse 11. We'll just finish on this thought.
Jetzt gehen wir noch zu Daniel 12 und Vers 11. Wir werden abschließen mit diesem Gedanken.
Because this is the same as what we've just been looking at. And from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,335 days. So I'm paralleling the 1260 with the 2,300, right?
Also ich habe hier parallel gesetzt, die 1260 mit der 2300.
Does the very same thing here, right?
Das tut dasselbe auch hier.
Because it says 1290 goes from the daily, taken away literally in history, to the point abomination is set up 1260, right?
Denn die 1290, die beginnt ja damit, dass das tägliche weggenommen wird und die Scroll der Verwüstung aufgestellt wird. Dann haben wir dann auch die 1260, das parallel.
Okay, 1260. And then in verse 12, it says, Blessed is he that what? Waiteth, right? It's the tarrying time, right? And cometh to the 1,335 days. But go thy way, Daniel, till the end be. Right? For thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. And it says right there, when he stands in his lot, it's the resurrection. Right?
Das sagt ja auf der Karte, wenn Daniel in seinem Los steht, dann ist das diese Auferstehung.
So this is the 1335.
Das ist die 1335.
Okay, and then that first quote, you can read it for yourself. They understood that the 1335 ended at the end of the 2300 days, right?
Und in diesem nächsten Zitat sagt es uns dann, dass diese 13, also sie haben verstanden, dass diese 1335, die endet eben mit dem Ende der 2300.
Okay, right? And the second quote is from Great Controversy at the seventh plague, when they're read out the blessing, when the Lord delivers them by his voice and pronounces the blessing upon them, right?
Und dieses letzte, also das nächste Zitat, das spricht dann eben darüber, wenn sie dann in der 7. Plage stehen und eben diese Segnungen dann über sie ausgesprochen werden und der Herr befreit sie eben mit seiner Stimme.
Right? So, this is prefigured here, but is perfectly illustrated here, right?
Und das alles hier ist vorausgestattet hier, aber perfekt dargestellt hier.
Okay? Sins put on the scapegoat, sins put on the scapegoat. Triumphal entry, triumphal entry.
Also die Sünden werden auf den Sündenbock gelegt, und hier auch die Sünden auf den Kopf des Sündenbocks gelegt. Und hier ist auch der triumphale Einzug und hier auch.
Right? Okay, so it's important that we understand what the Bible is illustrating and bring these patterns together, and then we start to see things very clearly, right?
Also es ist eben wichtig, dass wir das zusammenbringen, was eben die Bibel uns sagt, und dann können wir die Dinge klarer verstehen.
Okay, shall we close with prayer?
Lass uns abschließen mit Gebet.
Himmlischer Vater, wir danken dir für diese Morgenandacht.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning worship.
Wir bitten dich, Herr, hilf uns, das zu verstehen, was du uns offenbarst heute.
Please help us to understand what you want to reveal to us.
Und hilf uns bitte im Laufe dieses Tages mehr Kontakt mit dir zu machen.
And help us through this day to keep contact with you.
Hilf uns, dass unsere Gedanken zu dir richten.
Please help us that our thoughts may be drawn to you.
Und ich bitte dich, segne uns im Namen Jesu. Amen.
And please bless us all. In Jesus' name, amen.